AEW and WWE are wrestling promotions that have done wonders with storylines. They regularly tell stories that they try to make believable while being compelling. The best stories are always more realistic, but to pursue that often, the companies have a tendency of crossing a line. In fact, WWE and AEW have crossed lines and disrespected wrestlers who have passed away. This is wrestling up near times AEW or WWE disrespected the dead. It should be noted, Owen Hart won't be mentioned here, because while WWE continued the program despite his fall, it would only later learn he had passed away after his fall. The Flair family has seen a lot of wrestlers in the past, but they have also seen more than their fair share of tragedy. On Raw, the Divas Championship was still around as Paige and Charlotte were feuding over it. Charlotte would say Paige was there for Reid when he passed away, and had been there for him. Charlotte would then say she was there to fulfill his dream by achieving success in the wrestling ring. Later in the segment, Paige stated Charlotte's little baby brother didn't have much fight in him. Reid Flair was the youngest son of Rick. He tried to follow in the footsteps of his father and made appearances next to Ric Flair in WCW. Unfortunately, the wrestler would pass away at Residence Inn in Charlotte at 25 from an overdose. WWE apparently had not asked permission from the Flair family to bring up Reid's passing. The angle would spark a lot of outrage, and would be considered one of the most disgusting promotional tactics. Rick and Elizabeth, Reid's mother, would be outraged that WWE had used the line without warning. Lance Cade had a ton of potential when he arrived in WWE. Being a student of Shawn Michaels, he worked in WWE for 7 years, becoming tag team champion 3 times with Trevor Murdoch. The two looked like they would dominate tag team proceedings for a few years, but unfortunately Cade would be released by WWE for making a mistake that was not revealed. But Jim Ross revealed the wrestler had a seizure on a plane. Lance Cade was dismissed from the WWE because, like many humans, he made a major league mistake while utilizing bad judgment that cost him his job. This included Lance having a seizure on an airplane and having to have emergency medical care. Luckily, Lillian Garcia was on the same flight and was instrumental in helping Lance get taken to a hospital, where a battery of tests were run that luckily determined that there was nothing seriously wrong with the young man, such as a brain tumor. Everyone makes mistakes. Lord knows I've made plenty in my career, but in this day and time, some mistakes just simply can't be condoned. To some fans, Cade will likely still be perceived as the victim in this matter and his punishment too harsh. Under the circumstances of the situation, I don't know what other decisions WWE could have made. I'm just relieved that it wasn't me in the former role that would have had to address this matter. I really like this kid and hope that he continues to follow his dreams. Second chances are not foreign in the wrestling business, so perhaps that could be in Lance's future, but that's just a personal observation. After his release in 2008, he would wrestle on the indies, but before he could take advantage of a second chance in WWE, he died in August 2010 of heart failure at the age of 29. He was a top name, but Linda McMahon would disrespect him by claiming she could not recall him when asked about it during a run for Senate. His father revealed he had been with him on 2 different occasions when he had met Linda, who had recalled him by name and had lengthy conversations with him. 18 years old is a young age to begin a wrestling career, but that's when Joseph Tootsmont started. He quickly rose up the ranks and joined Ed Strangler Lewis's camp. He later formed the Goldust Trio with Lewis and Billy Sandow. The three developed the stylistic qualities of in-ring competition, creating an exciting brand dubbed Slam Bang Western Style Wrestling. They can also be credited for the idea of actual promotions, giving instruction which allowed travel from town to town. Mont is a legend, well known for his successful in-ring career in the 20s, as well as for co-promoting the company that would become WWE. His ideas included changing the style of wrestling. He went on to combine the features of the boxing ring, Greco-Roman, along with freestyle wrestling and the old-time lumber camp style of fighting. He also taught Vince Sr. and almost everyone else in the company at that time how to book matches. WWE can choose to not acknowledge the passing of this legend. Despite their love-hate relationship, it was Mont with Vince McMahon Sr. who took control of the Capital Wrestling Corporation and rebranded it to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in 16 1963. They were also responsible for making Bruno Sammartino famous. It's strange WWE seems to have turned a blind eye to the passing of the father of modern-day wrestling in WWE. In 1976, he died at the age of 82. His undeniable contributions to the industry cannot be forgotten, and he deserves to be remembered forever in the legacy wing of the Hall of Fame. Eddie Guerrero was being booked like a main eventer in WWE. However, anyone who saw him in his prime knew his death was something that took the heart out of wrestling. WWE decided to turn his passing into an opportunity. They made it into a storyline to push Rey Mysterio in the main event picture, and continuously reminded fans that he was doing it for his best friend Eddie. They were close in real life, so this could be excused. Then they had Randy Orton claim on live TV soon after Eddie's passing that Guerrero was in hell, as this line could have simply been avoided. Test was the second pro wrestler after Chris Benoit diagnosed with CTE after his death in 2009 at the age of 34. It was especially sad because he had the potential to make it big. He was also well liked enough to be put in an on-screen affair with Stephanie McMahon. He even proposed to McMahon's only daughter on national TV. Unfortunately, their romance was rudely interrupted and then fizzled out due to interference from Triple H. Despite the fact that he was never able to get back at Triple H, he still enjoyed a pretty prominent position. WWE even pushed him in their version of ECW in 06 and 07 before he would leave the company. After his departure, Test made his debut in TNA in August of 2007. He teamed up with Sting and Abyss, defeating Christian Cage, Tomko, and AJ Styles. He then wrestled in Europe in 08, and his final match was in Japan on February 3, 2009. Just 4 days after his 34th birthday, on March 13, 2009, Andrew Martin was found dead at his condo in Tampa. Reports stated he OD'd on oxycodone. Despite the fact he worked for WWE for over a decade, they chose to look the other way and not acknowledge his death. Ludwig Borga in WWE was only a member of the roster for a year in the early 90s. Maybe it would have been decent for WWE to acknowledge his death, considering he did put his body on the line for them. However, it wasn't good enough for WWE to acknowledge his passing. In fact, a WWE employee at the time, Jim Ross, highlighted him as an obnoxious individual who was a bully. He truly lived up to his foreign heel gimmick. Hall had no qualms about being openly racist and homophobic, even having a Nazi tattoo. Despite this, he was quite the celebrity. Hall was a pro wrestler, boxer, UFC fighter, actor, writer, and musician turned politician who was elected to Parliament in Finland. Barely a year into his political term, Hall OD'd on amphetamines and alcohol, shot an illegal firearm in his home during a row with his wife, and was hospitalized for 3 weeks as he slipped into a coma. The lack of oxygen from the overdose caused permanent brain damage. These problems never got any better, and on January 8, 2010, he brought a gun to his temple and pulled the trigger, with his body discovered 2 days later. Jack Tunney was a former wrestling promoter who arrived on WWE's TV and served as the figurehead of the company, being there for the signing of the WrestleMania match between Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. He was there for many moments, but was removed from the role by WWE around a decade before his passing. However, there was no acknowledgement of his passing on WWE's live shows. On top of that, no one from the company even bothered to go to his funeral. Chris Kanyon was an unstable figure in the wrestling world and was always a controversial one. He has been featured on Dark Side of the Ring's documentaries as well, thanks to the controversial nature of his life. He was known for his in-ring ability and his ability to innovate in the ring on a regular basis. However, when he was brought into WWE as a part of the Invasion angle, his run was anything but a success. He and his friend DDP were destroyed by the Brothers of Destruction in a match, and that is the best thing that he is remembered for in the company. He was a critic of the backstage environment at WWE, and after he was fired, he would bring up that he was poorly treated by those backstage and was often bullied because he was homosexual. The accusations were not proven, but knowing the locker room culture of WWE at the time, it's not totally unbelievable. He went on to kill himself by consuming too many antidepressants, but WWE only acknowledged this in a terse announcement on their website. After the years of service he provided to the wrestling world and the amount of work he put into it, as well as the way he affected the lives of so many people, they didn't even post a picture of him on their site. He was truly disrespected by the company and deserved better after such a sad and tragic passing. Mabel, aka Big Daddy V, was a man of huge proportions. There was a time when he was one of the top names in the main event scene. His massive size combined with his agility meant he impressed the audience. He went through multiple changes in character over the years. He was made a monster and then at a different time as a love machine by WWE. His career in the company spanned decades and saw feuds against Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and more. According to his widow, WWE did not reach out to contact her after his passing. He died of a heart attack on his 43rd birthday. His widow would file a wrongful death lawsuit against WWE a year after his passing, bringing up the fact that he was never informed about the consequences of CTE. The lawsuit was dismissed, yet WWE still never showed him the respect he deserved. Brian Pillman is one of the top stars of all time, but after his passing, he has been insulted by WWE and AEW. Pillman was an innovative star who incorporated high-flying wrestling in WCW. He was also a memorable tag team partner of Steve Austin. In WWE, he was a part of the Hart Foundation since he worked with the Hart family and trained there. His character in WWE was that of a loose cannon. He was still working for WWE when he passed and was in a feud with Goldust. When his body was discovered, it was because he didn't turn up to work for a pay-per-view. WWE then decided to interview his widow the next night live on Raw. As if being disrespected by one company was not enough, MJF, current AEW star, went too far by insulting the star and his family when battling with his son. He got into an argument with Pillman's daughter at ringside, calling her ugly. MJF would also insult Pillman's mother, talking about her drug habits while also calling out Pillman. The story was to get heat on MJF, but it was not really needed, and according to fans, the star went too far. And these were times AEW or WWE disrespected the dead. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.